Hello again, everyone. Welcome inside the Mayweather-McGregor Media Center here in Las Vegas, Nevada. I'm Ariel Helwani. That is Marc Raimondi. We have approached the final leg of the summer-long madness that is Mayweather-McGregor. Of course, it takes place Saturday night here in Sin City at the T-Mobile Arena, August 26th, the highly anticipated boxing match between one Conor McGregor and Floyd Mayweather Jr. And we were going to sort of recap day one, Tuesday, August 22nd, to be exact. But a funny thing happened along the way, as we have come to expect in mixed martial arts, Marc. A few curveballs, and every time it seems like we are about to celebrate a big moment for our sport. And yes, I know this is a boxing match, but it is still a big moment for the sport of MMA. Something bad seems to happen. And we got news late this afternoon that Jon Jones failed, according to the United States Anti-Doping Agency, failed a pre-fight UFC 214 drug test in competition. He has been provisionally suspended by USADA. And Marc, you spoke to the major players involved. You spoke to the California State Athletic Commission. You spoke to an official over at USADA. What could you tell us about what happened to Jon Jones this time?
So it was a sample collected in between the weigh-ins and the fight. It was on July 28th after the official weigh-ins. That's when the sample was collected. It came back, I guess, just this week that it was positive. The UFC and USADA have not announced the actual substance that Jon Jones failed for, but TMZ reported that it was turinabol, which is a steroid, which is in the higher class of substances, which means if it is indeed that substance, and given that Jones is a multiple-time offender now, if this does end up being a violation, because now it's only a potential violation, he would be facing up to 4 years suspended.
So this comes a little over a year after he was pulled from UFC 200, suspended for a year as a result of that failed drug test. Of course, there was the cocaine drug test failure. There was the hit and run. I mean, this is just another hit to his legacy. And as we've learned with these things, we'd like to sort of believe that someone is innocent before labeling them a cheater and saying that they are guilty. But once again, this is a massive blow to Jon Jones. When you found out the news, what was your reaction, especially considering everything that he said leading up to that fight, how good he looked in the fight, and then everything he said afterwards?
It's just hard to imagine that this could happen again because of everything that Jon did say leading up to the Cormier fight about being clean and about taking care of his life and about doing the right things now, and he said so many times, it was such a big storyline. This was just a few weeks ago that we were in California and we were talking to Jon Jones about some things that Daniel Cormier was saying. He was upset that Cormier said that he tested positive for steroids because the first time he didn't test positive for steroids. He tested positive for clomiphene and letrozole, which are anti-estrogen agents. They're not steroids. Those only carried a 1 year maximum suspension. They were in the lesser classification by USADA. So he made it a point to say, I've never tested positive for steroids. And at the time, he was true. It turns out a few weeks later, if TMZ is correct, and from what I'm hearing, it does seem like it was a steroid, now Jon Jones actually has tested positive for steroids. So after all that talk, just a few weeks ago against Cormier, I never tested positive for steroids. Stop saying that I tested positive for steroids. It seemed like it really affected him that Cormier was saying this. Now it seems like Jon Jones has tested positive for steroids. What a turn of events. It's crazy.
Yeah, Jon Jones' team released a statement to us, and in short said that they are shocked by the news, but they will test the B sample and are hoping that would clear things up. Kind of hit or miss these days with that, of course. Also, Jeff Nowitzki and Dana White said that if it does come out that he did test positive, he could be facing up to 4 years. Is that correct?
4 years. And it's worth saying again, because we've seen multiple times now with USADA. Now, a failed drug test is a failed drug test. It does mean that substance was in the system of that fighter. But it doesn't necessarily mean we know how it got there. It could have been an accident. It could have been a tainted substance. It could have been something contaminated. These things have happened. And in fact, with Jon Jones' last test, USADA did say that it felt, at least the arbitrator said that it did feel that Jones did unknowingly take the anti-estrogen agents. He said that it was from a quote-unquote dick pill. It was a sexual enhancement pill. And USADA did feel that way. They felt like he did take it unknowingly, but he was so reckless in taking something that he didn't know what was in. They still gave him the full 1 year. So it remains to be seen what they're gonna do. But it is worth saying again, it's happened before where, yeah, drug test failure, but we don't know how or why it got into the system. It could have been an accident. We don't know. We have to give him the benefit of the doubt before we say it. But as of right now, he did fail a drug test. That's the only thing that we do know.
Now, once the news broke a couple hours ago, I called Daniel Cormier. Daniel Cormier is in Hawaii with his family on vacation right before his kids start school. He had no idea about the news, and he kept saying to me, "You're lying, you're lying." He asked me to swear on my kid's life. He said to me that he was shaking. He said that he had no idea what to make of all of this and had to call me back. I called him back, and he said that I'm still trying to process all of this. And then finally he put out a statement through us, called me up, gave me a couple lines, and then said he was going to reserve judgment. He was as classy as ever, didn't take any shots at Jon Jones, just says he doesn't even know what to think anymore. Said he thought on that night Jon Jones was the better man. Now he's just completely lost and confused, as are all of us. At this point, what do you do if you're Daniel Cormier? How do you process this? Because I have to say, there was a time when people almost blamed Daniel Cormier for Jon Jones' failures, called him the paper champion, said he didn't deserve to be a UFC light heavyweight champion. But after something happened at 214 where the fans just became emotionally invested in him once and for all, and he really stole their hearts, and now you look at the comments after he put out that statement, everyone's calling him the real champ. Everyone is loving and respecting Daniel Cormier. That's all well and good. What does he do? How does he process this? How does he move on?
This is such a surreal situation. Just imagine what must be going through Daniel Cormier's mind, because he's sitting in Hawaii with his family right now, probably still very emotional about losing that fight to Jon Jones, a fight that he really believed he was going to win, and a fight that if he did win was going to cement him as maybe the greatest fighter of all time. So he's carrying these feelings and these emotions of loss and of defeat. He's not the champion anymore. And now all of a sudden, just a few weeks later, he's on vacation with his family and he gets news that Jon Jones tested positive for a banned substance. The fight will most likely be overturned into a no contest. And who knows who the champion is going to be. Dana White did say today, after the Contender Series in Las Vegas, that they haven't made a decision yet. They're waiting to see how the USADA process plays out before they decide to strip Jones of the belt. But if you're Daniel Cormier and you just fought a guy who was on something, it was in his system, right? I mean, we don't know how it got there, but it was in his system. He must feel like he was wronged again, and it's something that he was saying before the last fight. He felt like that Jones was on something when they fought the first time in 2016. So I can't imagine what is going through this man's brain and is in his heart right now, because it must just be like the craziest roller. Think of the craziest roller coaster you've ever been on in your life. That is Daniel Cormier's emotions right now.
He took the loss extremely hard. And, I'm wondering, something that doesn't come up all that often in these cases. I mean, it's clear Daniel Cormier suffered a concussion. He said on the MMA Hour that he doesn't even remember the end of the fight. Could Daniel Cormier sue Jon Jones if it comes out that Jon Jones is guilty, that he did knowingly take a steroid, and then he did that to Daniel Cormier? Do you feel like that's something that should be looked into?
I don't really know. I mean, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not really sure how that works. But I do feel like because it was a sanctioned fight, there's a commission involved, the UFC, I don't know if he could sue or not. Now, Marc Hunt is suing the UFC and Dana White and Brock Lesnar for Lesnar failing the drug test in relation to UFC 200, because the test came back. The test was taken before the fight, and the results only came back after the fight. So Hunt is in the process of suing them right now. Could Daniel Cormier put together another lawsuit? I mean, I can't imagine that happening, but I don't know. That's hard to say. There's so many. I feel like we now have more questions than we have answers, because it seemed like things came full circle at UFC 214. It seemed like Jones was clean. He was back. He looked good. He won the fight. He got the title back, and this was going to be the beginning of the Jon Jones redemption story. And now we're right back where we started with another failed drug test. I'm still trying to wrap my brain around it right now.
It's an unbelievable turn of events, and a lot of fans are wondering, well, what does this mean for the light heavyweight title? Dana White telling the media after the Contender show today that he's going to go through his due process, Jon Jones. And there is a chance that he may be stripped if he is found guilty and he is actually suspended. But as of right now, he has not been officially stripped, and he did not comment as to whether or not, if Jon Jones does get stripped, what happens to the belt? Does it become just a vacant title? Does the belt go back to Daniel Cormier? This is somewhat of an unprecedented situation. Sean Shirk was stripped when he was the lightweight champion, but there was a long period of time. There was an interim champion in between. BJ Penn became the interim champion. So, it's just kind of a weird situation. It's sort of, off the top of my head right now, it's been a long time. We had the Josh Barnett situation a long time ago, but this is a weird one where the challenger wins the belt and then fails the drug test, and now you don't know what's happening. It's just another chapter in the Jon Jones saga, and it's a sad saga, whatever happens, because there's going to be some kind of repercussion here. We thought he had turned the corner. I think everyone considers him to be the greatest of all time, but now you wonder what his legacy is, and you also wonder, as Dana White said, if he even fights again. A sad story, truly, for a guy who's not even hit his prime just yet.
It is a really sad story, and just my immediate feeling about the belt is if everything does turn out that Jones is guilty, so to speak, and USADA does suspend him and that whole deal, and the fight gets overturned to a no contest, which would be done by the way by CSAC, by the California Commission, because they also have jurisdiction over this fight. So Jones has to go through the process with them and with USADA, the same way that he had to go through the process with Nevada and USADA last year. We're talking about the same thing over and over again. So if it does end up that way, and it's a no contest, now maybe I'm crazy, but if it's a no contest, that means Jones never beat Daniel Cormier officially, which means Daniel Cormier should remain the champion.
Yeah.
He didn't lose officially in the record books. Now I'm not sure how the UFC will play that, but that's just my immediate feeling. As far as Jones' legacy, it's really it's emotional. It's like I'm thinking about it, and I'm like, wow, what could this guy have been? Where could he have stood? Even through all the stuff that's happened already, the felony hit and run, the DUI, the drug test last year, everyone was still saying Jon Jones is the greatest fighter of all time. Through all of that, but now there's a second drug test failure. At what point do we say, well, we just don't know anymore? We just don't know. I don't know. Well, I guess we'll see how it plays out, but to be continued on his legacy. It used to be set in stone. It's no longer that.
Great point about the belt, by the way, because when he was stripped after the hit and run, that was not tied to a fight, but this is tied to a fight.
Correct.
After he won the belt. So there is a chance that Daniel Cormier gets that belt back, but they have not, of course, once again, made that official ruling. One last thing, Dana White saying to the press that they were thinking about booking Jon Jones versus Stipe Miocic December 2nd in Detroit. I know that fight was discussed with the Jones camp. Again, as I've reported countless times now, Stipe Miocic is not budging. He is not considering returning to the cage until he gets a new contract. But what's interesting now is this is a massive double whammy for the UFC, because not only down the line in December is this affecting a fight. Let's talk about what's happening right now. UFC 214, best show of the year by far. Best pay-per-view numbers, 850, 900 range. The return of the GOAT, big things to come, super fights, Brock Lesnar fight, all that stuff and more. And then this happens as we kick off Mayweather-McGregor week. Everyone today is talking about this. I thought that the Kyrie Irving trade to the Celtics was going to overshadow Mayweather-McGregor. This is overshadowing all of it, in my opinion. Jon Jones failing a drug test. And now here we are covering a boxing match where the biggest star in the UFC, Conor McGregor, is going out there and sort of putting his neck out there on the line. Who knows what happens on Saturday? And Jones, this is not a good time for the UFC. While boxing, I feel like, is developing a lot of momentum, having a great year, a better year, in my opinion, than MMA, this is another massive blow in what has become somewhat of a disastrous 2017.
It's huge because after that fight, Jones, we don't know, but it seemed like he may have cemented himself finally as a big star, as a big draw, because of how well that did on pay-per-view. And the UFC is needing that right now. They really need a big draw, and now who knows when he's going to return. That Brock Lesnar fight that could have happened maybe next year. Who knows when Jon Jones will ever fight again, if he does fight again.
The sport never ceases to amaze. It's Tuesday. It's August 22nd. We still have, 4 more days to go before arguably the biggest fight of our lifetime goes down just a few blocks from here, Mayweather versus McGregor, and we're kicking things off this week with Jon Jones failing another drug test and getting provisionally suspended by the United States Anti-Doping Agency. What will happen to Jon Jones? Will he ever fight again? Will he remain the UFC light heavyweight champion? Right now, more questions than answers. We're still trying to digest it all, and we will have plenty more updates as the week rolls along. And by the way, a reminder to all of you, the MMA Hour is live from Las Vegas, from right here in Sin City, right back there in the media center. Marc and I and many others will be reacting to this news, talking about Mayweather-McGregor. Our first show of the week kicks off Wednesday, so in just a couple hours from now, Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern time, so stay tuned for that. We're live on Twitter, MMAfighting.twitter.com. That will be a on-the-road edition of the MMA Hour, but for now we shall say goodnight. Jon Jones testing positive once again. Plenty more reaction to come from here in Las Vegas.